the staff of the university. I think this is a wonderful testimony, not just to Professor Samaranayake, but to all the staff here. So many congratulations to you all. So, as has been said, I was the same era. When Professor Samaranayake first taught Fortran programming, I first arrived in Reading University to teach statistics. And statistics and computing, as you've seen in this discussion, have been very closely intertwined in the history of this university, and I think are an impressive part of that history. The Vice-Chancellor has challenged everybody to go across the borders of these different faculties and departments. And I think that's also an interesting example where statistics is now in the science faculty and separate from computing. But I hope we'll continue to work extremely closely together, not least because this new-ish subject of data science provides a challenge to do so. So, I'm afraid I'm going to call him Prof, because I always thought of him either as Sam or Prof. He was a very humble and easy person to get on with, as well as being just a wonderful person and such a great instigator of so many things. While he was teaching Fortran programming in Reading, I was using these machines with my students. And this, I think, is an idea of the difference. When I arrived in 1973, we'd only just stopped using them. And I don't know if you realize that teaching mathematics, even, with those machines, just what a difference that was. You see the handle at the side. If you want to take two numbers and divide them, you turn the handle anti-clockwise until the bell rings. And then you turn it back once, and you've done one place on your division. This was the way students, not in Sri Lanka, but students in the UK, were having to do their work in the late 60s and early 70s. I arrived partly because there were problems at the time with statistics. And so my job here, statisticians in the past weren't trained very well either. They were taught the theory. They were taught the nice analyses. They often lacked communication skills. And a good applied statistician found that unless one was careful, they were often sidelined in important developments and research projects. They sat there, they bemoaned their fate, whereas things happened round them. What was going wrong? Training was dominated by analysis. There wasn't enough on organizing the data. There wasn't enough on design. Often a recipe book approach was used, and we had many people coming to us to say, I have this data, which test should I use? Because they thought that like a recipe, you just had to find the test, and then you could do your analysis. And this wasn't with understanding of principles. Training emphasized formulae, and often hand calculation, even when computers were around. And the argument was, when you do it by hand, you get understanding. But many years have shown that doesn't necessarily follow. And there were very little people giving good experience of computers for good statistical. Samaranayake, perhaps this indicates what a failure I've been, is that in many countries that I now work, these remain as problems. And I do feel that, as has been said, with the status of this university and the quality of both computing and statistics, maybe the university is not being ambitious enough in thinking of it on the world stage. If I just give the one example, when we started our link, we had a very strong department of statistics at Reading, and it was building up here. It was such a pleasure to visit the Department of Statistics on Monday and see they are enormously strong. And I would be sending people to Colombo University Statistics far more easily. I wouldn't send them to Reading anymore. And I'm very saddened to say this. About 20 years ago, we were quite strong. We now have 5 statisticians at Reading. You have 20 here, 10 with PhDs. And so the teaching here, quite unlike in many countries, and I give the contrast that I asked students who were statistics students starting their masters how large the data sets were that they'd analysed in their courses. Many of the students had not analysed any data at all, even though they were statistics students. And the largest data set from any student from any of the 60 countries had 60 rows of data. This is nothing in this day and age. When I asked the same question here on Monday, I got a multitude of answers. They are being taught in a modern and disciplined way that I think many countries could learn from. So the results often, with the poor teaching, are graduates with a question. Who was in charge of this card punch